Hi, and welcome to AAC On The Move, integrating communication supports into physical activities. This is Part 2, Support Examples. We also have a Part 1 Visual Supports webinar. If you haven't seen that, definitely click on the link in the resources section and you can view that webinar separately, and that is a nice supplement to the information that's contained in this webinar. Today we're going to focus on the tools or materials that you would use for visual supports. So just as a reminder from the Part 1 webinar, what are the kinds of supports that we're talking about that are considered visual supports? Some of these terms may be familiar: schedules or mini schedules, task lists, checklists, a calendar. Those are all primarily input or receptive supports. And then choice boards or topic boards or communication display, a communication app, any of those are materials that are generally aimed at supporting someone else to communicate, but we always encourage folks to use communication supports receptively and expressively with individuals so that no matter what, they can see their tools being used by others. So adults could use any of these materials and it would be a benefit to the individuals that they work with. Okay, this is another reminder from Part 1 of the webinar, but it's really important. So just remembering to keep those visual supports accessible. So if they're not there, they can't be used. And that's a big part of why we're doing this separately, is making sure that the materials that you choose are usable in terms of that being portable if they need to be, or being stationary if they need to be, but finding a format that really works for you. So making things that are within reach or that can be transported from one place to another. Looking at the different types of visuals that you might use: photographs, line drawings, text, or a combination. Some of the examples that you see will be better examples of being clear than others, but you definitely want the images to be large enough, the fonts to be large enough that there is one focus item whenever possible. You'll have oftentimes multiple versions of supports. So just like you saw on that last slide, there are lots of different types of supports. You won't necessarily just have one visual support that you use, you'll have different ones. And you'll have lots of different types of vocabulary, flexible vocabulary, again, depending on the purpose. Okay, so let's look at some specific materials that you could use to create your visual supports. This is an example of an alternative type of paper. So some folks don't know about map paper or kind of Tyvek type paper, weatherproof paper. This can be printed on. It's similar to the envelopes that you find, the flexible envelopes that would be at the Postal Service. They're made out of that same type of paper. What's nice about it is it's rip-proof. So if you have working with individuals that might crumple or rip or otherwise manipulate the material, a paper material, such that it's not usable, this might be one way to go. So just knowing that that is out there as a possibility might be helpful, and it's very lightweight. So it's nice to do things like books on this, because then you don't have to worry about the pages being ripped, etc. Okay, another material that is commonly used to kind of as a foundation for the visual supports is the foam core or the plastic core. So the black and white version picture over here, let's see, this right here is your, oops. So right here, so our next material is foam core or plastic core. And that's commonly used as a lightweight, sturdy surface on which to mount symbols or other displays. So the black and white here is foam core, meaning it's on the outside it's poster board, and then in between the layers of poster board is foam. And then Plasticore is actually entirely made of plastic, and you can see that over here in the different colors. It actually looks like a bunch of straws sort of mushed together, but the top and the bottom, you know, the face of them is flat, so it's smooth. What's nice about the Plasticore is it can get wet, whereas the foam core, unless you put contact paper over it, if it gets wet, it's going to get mushy because it's got that paper on it. Whereas the Plasticore, it can get wet and no problem. Plasticore is easy to cut typically with a craft knife, you know, a sharp single blade knife. And it can also be scored, and you'll see in another example where you can score it on one side and then it bends in one direction and not in the other. And that's nice to create a display that can kind of be more stable, almost like a trifold display. This material is often, you could get it at a craft supply store if you know what you're looking for. Some of the specific stores, like maybe Staples has it, things like that, but also sign stores, places that create signs, they sell that because it's oftentimes used for political signs. So you can either go to a place that makes the political signs or signs in general, or you might be able to find signs that people have created and use those. So kind of recycle those signs if you that is what makes them stand up in all the weather, etc., because they're all plastic. So that's one way to reuse those materials. Okay, so now we have some Welcome to AAC On The Move, integrating communication supports into physical activities. This is part 2 with support examples. Part 1 was an overview of visual supports, and if you'd like to check that out, do look in the resources section for that link. So today in this webinar, we're going to focus on looking at the tools. So what are the materials that we can use for our visual supports? Just a quick overview. This is a list of some of the terms that we used in part 1 of the webinar: schedules and mini schedules and tasks lists and checklists and calendars and choice boards, topic boards, communication displays, apps, etc. Those are all communication supports, ways that we give information to folks and ways that they give information back to us. So any of those are game for the materials that we're talking about today. And also just another reminder from the part 1 webinar about some of the features. We are really looking for accessibility. So part of the reason that I created this second part of the webinar and separated it out is there are so many options for materials that you can use to create your supports, to make sure that they are accessible and available and visible and portable and all those other things. So lots of different options. Don't ever let a barrier be that I can't carry it, or I can't, it's not with me because it's not practical. We're going to make it practical so that no matter what, you always have those materials within reach, and that they're going to hopefully be clear and have good text and good drawings, and they're going to have good labels on them, and they're going to have a nice clear focus to them and good vocabulary. So what I'd like you to do is, as we're going through the materials and the examples, is use this as a way to just expose yourself to the different options. There is a list at the end of the webinar of all of the different materials and the different formats and things. So the idea is that you might be able to, say, print the PDF of this PowerPoint and use that as a reference. So just be thinking as we go through about the different materials, and it's just exposure to what's out there, and that there are many, many options, and where there's a will, there's a way. So just thinking about in what ways might we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, create this support if there are challenges, because when you're moving around, your hands are often full, so you need other ideas about how to make those materials accessible. So let's take a look at some of these specific materials, the raw materials that you might use to create your visual supports. Um, one of the things that is kind of nice to have as an option when you're in a situation where the materials might be getting wet, say in a water-based location, or if you have someone that might be drooling or other, kind of damp behaviors, you can get weatherproof or map paper. And this is similar to what's in the Postal Service for those white envelopes that they have for mailing. It's that kind of papery but flexible Tyvek feeling paper, and you can print on it. You can write on it on a marker. You can print right on it. You can make an actual communication book on it. You can make an actual book on it. But it's nice because it's also tear proof, so you don't have to worry about it. Can get wrinkly, but it won't rip. To my knowledge, you can't really rip it. So it's nice if you want someone to have really close access to the materials and not have to worry about them getting ruined. So here are a couple of other kind of foundations for communication supports that are pretty common. The first one is the foam core, which is the poster board with the foam in between. And then plasticore, which is basically a plastic version of the foam core. So it's almost like a bunch of straws put together, but the top and bottom, or the facades are flat and smooth, so they're not all bumpy. The plasticore sometimes is sold in craft stores, but is most often associated with companies that make signs or political signs. So if you can get political signs at the after an election, and you can get those discards, they're often made out of plasticore so that they'll be sturdy and lightweight and not dry, get kind of wet and have a problem in the rain, which would be what happens with foam core. Foam core, one of the benefits of that over here is that it is less expensive, right? You can get that for $1 for a huge poster board size. And if you want it to be more durable, you can put contact paper over that. So, and that makes it lightweight. Both of these can actually be scored on one side, which, use a craft knife and cut down one side, cut here along the lines. And if you do that, it then bends in one direction and not in the other. And you'll see in an example that we have a little further on where that makes for a nice display, because it's really stable and sturdy. You can hold it out and it won't kind of be floppy like it would be if it was a piece of paper. So these, I would say, are kind of the workhorses, the foam core and the plastic core, because they can be cut to size and they're pretty available. They're a lot of the workhorse for the communication supports. Okay, let's look at a couple of the ways that you might carry information on you. So a lanyard is sort of an obvious solution. So we carry our badges and things. It's also a place where you could add another lanyard with some quick visual supports, things that you need to say often. Go ahead and put those maybe in a little staggered fashion down the front of a plastic card on the lanyard, and then you can add to your speech these little pictures of what you're talking about. I also like the extendable badge holders, because these can actually clip to your belt or to another part of you, and then you can use this clip your communication support on the end here, and I'll tell you it can't be very heavy, or it will pull the extension out with just having the support on it. But if it's pretty lightweight, you can hang something along the end here, and then when you need it to show someone, you extend it out, you show them the picture, and then you retract it back. So it's, again, both of these are kind of better for lightweight, small amounts of material, but good options, nonetheless. And we know that because we're all wearing them with our badges on it, right? Okay, wristbands. These are, again, readily available and Velcro sensitive. So if you want to carry a few symbols around on your wrist as the adult and pull them off as you need them to show someone some different vocabulary, that's a kind of quick and easy and comfortable way to wear your supports. So here's another nice surface that I've used. I used to use a lot when I made a lot of supports. It was the most inexpensive way to get Velcro was to actually use Velcro sensitive material or low nap carpet. So you can buy Veltex or Velcro sensitive material in a roll, and it would have sometimes it will have sticky back, and other times it won't, depending on which you order. So those usually come in large quantities, so like 5 feet by 3 feet. But it's reasonable for something like that. It's about $10, and if you put Velcro sensitive material into the search engine, you should be able to find lots of vendors for that. There's also low nap carpet, which is I think what they're using here, and I'll show you on the next slide as well. This is another low nap carpet, which is basically like a sort of a more indoor-outdoor version. So if it's really plush and shaggy, it's not going to work. But if it's something like what's in your car, and they actually sell that on a roll, I've bought it at Big Lots for a couple of dollars, less than $10 for an entire roll, and then cut it up because there's no stickiness on the back, and it makes these really durable little square, rectangular, whatever displays. So between these two, hopefully you could see some of the possibilities of a nice, lightweight, portable surface. And in particular, if you have to cover kind of a larger surface, so say you want to cover some big area, a wall even, this is nice to tack up because it's not heavy and it's not expensive, and you can get it in some nice dark colors, which would be a good contrast, and then do a huge wall of maybe your symbols or different displays that we'll see coming up. Okay, this actually is a regular apron that has had Velcro added to it, and you can put, whoops, go back. You can put the symbols inside the pocket and then pull out the ones that you need. I actually like to use that Velcro sensitive fabric to create an apron so that the whole thing is Velcro sensitive. So going back just 2 slides, so this Velcro sensitive material that we talked about, you can cut that up to be an apron and add some strings to it, and then the whole thing is Velcro sensitive. But again, then it's at your waist, it's readily available, it's handy. There's also commercially available Velcro aprons if you prefer that and you're not handy or you have money to burn. That's another way to go. Okay, another idea that that families particularly like is fabric, transfer fabric or printable fabric. So this was downloaded from a website cited here. It's a pillow with messages on it that the child may want to say at night. And I don't know if this is an iron-on version or a printable version, but they do have fabric that you can put into a printer and print right on it, or you put the material into the printer, you print on it, and then you iron it onto the fabric. So there's 2 different types. And again, if you put printable fabric or transfer fabric into your search engine, if you're interested in this, you should be able to come up with some different options depending on what you want. But you could put this on a t-shirt, or just, again, if you're looking for something that isn't rippable, that is another option, is to use fabric. So and the printing comes out pretty good. It's not quite as sharp as printing on paper, but it's pretty good, and you can kind of see in this example too. So okay, so we're going to continue to look at some of the different materials, but now we're going to see them in the form of actual communication supports. So here's an example of that Velcro sensitive material in the form of a wallet. So this is actually a commercially available wallet, but no reason you couldn't make this yourself. And the pages are actually made out of that Velcro sensitive material, and each page has a set of material symbols on them. And you can then close that up, and they have that connected to their waist, right? So again, you can be hands-free. You can grab this when you need it. It's soft. It's not going to poke into you, and it's portable, right? And you can also take it off if you don't want it to be hanging on you. But that's a pretty simple solution. Lots of times folks will put a ring and then put a bunch of visual supports on this, on that key ring kind of thing. Schedules, etc. I often see on a key ring. I don't particularly like using key rings myself, and the reason is they tend to be a little unwieldy, and this sort of shows that where because there's no start and end, once you flip something around, it's gone, and there's really no point of reference. And I find it's really difficult to quickly find what you need, and things kind of come apart a little bit. So if nothing else, putting two rings on there might be more helpful, and even putting, say, some of that foam core or plastic core at the back of the ring, so that yes, then it gets to be a little bit more like a book, but at least there's some kind of reference to front and back or beginning and end of that list. But otherwise, um, I think I think we have better options, I guess is what I'm saying. But I did want to include that in here just so that we could talk about it. But I do think we have better options for making it more quickly accessible for the adult, and also making it more accessible for the individual that we're working with. Because I think even if the adult can find what they're looking for, that format is not likely to be the best one for the user that we're working with to find what they need. So that's sort of my take on the use of the key ring, but you can consider that anyway. I thought this was a little bit creative. So this is paint stick with the Velcro on it, and it has just a bunch of symbols attached. And you can use it as a sequence because it's linear, or turn it sideways and use it that way, or kind of hold it up. It's just kind of a really I don't know, kind of obvious visual, I guess. It's kind of right there in your face, easy to kind of see, and for a person that you're working with to see. Maybe not the best choice for someone who might use it in other ways, but again, just showing different options, different creative ideas of how to put things together. I really like this wrist wrap. This is again a commercially available tool, but it's also something you could create, right? So it's not so far from the wristband that we saw, but here you see they've got 12 symbols just on this little one display that they can point to and supplement their verbal input with this, picture-based input. So whether it's commercial or whether this gives you your own idea, having it on your arm is really easy to kind of move and again be hands-free. So I thought this was really nice, and I have used variations on this myself in the past, and although the space is more limited than other options, that would be one of the only drawbacks, I would say. Otherwise, it's a really nice tool. Here's something simple, your dollar store pool noodle with a nice slice in the top, and you can put a slice on the bottom to stabilize it, and then stick your symbols in the top there, and easily move them around. And so maybe this is a mini schedule, and the child is going to put in order the things that they want to do, and you can kind of reorder them. It could be for a game, could be any number of things, but it's just sort of quick and handy and lightweight, and not dangerous in any way, and just another idea. I like magnets. I like an alternative to Velcro, and so I wanted at least one example of use of magnets, and this is one that I found that I thought was nice. Even though this particular one is for kindergarten, you could use magnets and cookie sheets, or any other type of magnetic station, or magnetic material, sorry, to put communication boards on, to put choices on, to put any other kind of information, and it's easy to manipulate. It can be easier to remove than Velcro, although depending on how strong the magnets are, you kind of want to make sure the magnets are strong enough to hold the pictures up such that they don't slide down, but not so strong that you can't move them, like a earth magnet or something. So here is just a communication display inside of a baggie, and it's on like a floating board for the pool. So this doesn't just have to be used in the pool. It could be used in the bathtub. It could just be a lightweight communication display. I've used, oh, what do they call it? Cutting boards for the same purpose, lightweight cutting boards. But this particular one is nice if you want to use it in the pool, such as the one that the display that they've used here. It's nice because it's waterproof, so you don't have to, go without in the pool. You can have this, and you could probably put contact paper over it, and it would secure it just as well. But using that plastic bag really helps too, and you could write on that if you wanted to. So these are just some self-regulation cards. So this is when I'm angry, when I'm frustrated. These are things that I can do. And you could put a little hanger on them to put it like on the doorknob, but gives you a reminder of another type of visual is to give information about what my options are. And I like that they have the nice text, nice readable, legible text with the symbols to encourage that literacy. Okay, so here's the example of the plasticor that has been scored so that it can be used as a display. So I'm holding one end of it and the rest is held out, and because the back, it's been scored just along the back, it'll fold inward, but it won't fold back on itself. So I can hold an end of it and the rest stays pretty much straight out, and I can then point to the different symbols that I need without it kind of falling down or kind of falling apart on me. So and then when I'm done, I fold in the two sides, and it becomes a nice small foldable display. It actually folds in twice and then again, so it's just about the size of 1/4 of this entire display when it's all folded up. And then that's nice, it's lightweight, it's portable, and here we have over 100 symbols that are available in this small space just by using that folding action and then unfolding it as it's needed. Here's another version of that same display, and what I did was I cut it into smaller sections and then put some packing tape in between each of the sections so that it would fold up like an accordion. And so this is just cardstock, but on these edges, because of the tape, it folds like an accordion. And I think you can see here, this was created for a team of a child with in a preschool that they had their hands quite full with him. So I was challenged to find a format for all of that vocabulary that we had over here that would be more, even this was too much for them to carry. So what we did was created this foldable process where we used a binder clip to hold it together, and then this ring was put onto the belt loop of the adult, and then they could turn this to whatever section that they wanted and then clip it in that format so that that section that they wanted was displayed, and then they could reach down and just grab it and point, and they could take it off the clip if they wanted or leave it on the clip, but that one part of the page was visible. And then if they were sitting at a table or something, they could take it off and open up the whole thing and have it all opened up from this accordion style. So that was the format that I've used quite a bit since then, and it's been quite well received as being, really portable yet, complete or comprehensive, which is hard to find a combination of those two things. So what's nice about this is because you have so much vocabulary, you don't need a lot of other little supports. No matter what word you need, 120 words, you have lots to choose from, and you're going to be able to find a word that you need as you're walking down the hall or as you're doing an activity and not have to stop and run and get a lot of small support. So there's a benefit to that. Okay, this is just an example of an environmental display, which would be something that is posted in the environment, and not necessarily, maybe you can pull it off, but you would expect that it would also live, in one particular place. So sometimes you'll see these in classrooms with younger children where they have centers and things, but also other places where you can identify specific words that might go in that location. And it's just to encourage that language and also to make sure that that's there if you want to model using the visual with the verbal, then you know it's right where you need it and you don't have to go find it. Here's a nice example of a portable book, and it's spiral bound, which I love because they lie flat, quite honestly, and they don't get caught up. And it's a topic board book, meaning each page sort of is related to a vocabulary related to a specific topic. So you have the little tabs here that you can go through with different topics and just flip through. And I think this book is actually more like a 6 by 8 inch book, but certainly you can make these in any way that you want. Just know that also if you don't have a spiral binding machine, you can do coil binding, which is more with the black spine, and then it has some little coils that go through. I don't find that as durable. You can also go and have anything you want spiral bound at a copy or office supply store for about $3 or $4. So if you have a big book and you've used it and you think I'm really going to be using this a lot, not making changes to a lot of the pages, it might be worthwhile to do that. Here's a binder, and I do like this layout where you've got a grid that shows you where the symbols go, and then you remove a symbol and you put it up the top. In this case, it's to create a sentence, but you could have options down here for activities, and you could remove them and put them up the top, and then this whole card is removable. So it looks similar to a picture exchange communication system, but it doesn't have to be used that way. So you may have pages in the binder relating to different topics and then use this to show what's going to be happening. So a nice little visual schedule, and it's a nice way to contain everything in one place. And I think there's a plastic page protector, so the Velcro attaches to that, and then the page slips in with the little squares behind it. This is a nice little display of a system. This is that coil binding that I was just talking about. And what this person has done is taken a laminated card and added a little extra, you can see this is the size of it right here, a little extra set of vocabulary to the top. So there's multiple pages, and depending on what the activity is, the person would flip this to a new page. So this has art vocabulary. Up here, this might be food related. Underneath, it might be game playing. So there's some basic core words down here, and we talked very little about core vocabulary in the first webinar, but these would stay the same, and this display would stay the same, and they would just flip this top part based on the specific activity. So a flip book, there are definitely commercially made ones, but this is easy enough to make with one long sheet, and all of these are just cut to be short, and you just bind it along the top, and there you go. You've got a nice flexible system that can be both core-based and have that fringe or noun-based vocabulary. This was just a great picture of a bunch of visual supports. I put various visual supports, but just to give you an idea of, here's a first, then, and then. Here's I'm going to do this and be all done. Now and later. Just some different sequences. So just wanted to throw that in there of some nice color-coded backgrounds, things like that, as another example of some visual supports. This is another format that I used to use it quite a bit and haven't used it in a while, but I think it's great. So in this case, it's a file folder with, I believe this is Velcro, and when it's open, the tasks haven't yet been done, and when it's closed, then it's been done. So they've got this was a home-based little system, so the t-shirt means get dressed, and when that's happened, it's been done. So when I used to use this, it was initially with some individuals who had trouble with that Velcro. You know how we talked about magnets and Velcro, but they could use a full hand movement to push this flap and close it when they were done. So that was much easier to them than having to remove, etc. So that's what we did. So this could be a nice option for somebody, and you might have removable pictures here so that you could change the keep the template the same and then change up those activities. So thought that was really nice to see. These options down here on this self-regulation poster are movable, so they're Velcroed on. I think this is similar in that it's a laminated or page protected big sheet, and then down the bottom these are attached with Velcro so that they can be changed. But it's just a reminder. So this is information that you would have, and why not share that with your student or your client visually rather than have to talk through this at a time when they're upset. You can just present this or have this accessible, and then they can consult that as they need it and not have to have you add the auditory stimulation to that situation. Here's a visual supports on a door. So we talked about the Velcro sensitive material, and here we have just a foam core with the Velcro strips on it. So you can do that. You could, here we have like all of the potentially available symbols, and then they get moved down to these little systems as they're needed. So depending on what's happening that day, they'll put up the schedule here and then move it to a first then, and here's where you drop them when you're finished. So this is just an individualized sort of schedule and mini schedule system. Here's another file folder where you again have this set of potential, and then you put them in order over here, and you use your little check marks or completed Velcro sensitive material. So it's flexible. You can rearrange it each day, and yet the whole format stays the same. And you can fold it up and kind of carry it with you. Here's the same type of thing with on the wall. So here's each activity, nice big visual text, and then the time that it occurs. And here's a different example of storage of the symbols. So again, Velcro on the end of the cabinet. You could have put Velcro sensitive material there, and then here's those schedules. Okay, let's take a look at some of the high-tech options that we have available. So I'm going to try and share with you either no cost or low cost options. Because if you're going higher than that, you probably want some more support from someone with AAC or assistive technology knowledge so that you can do that. But if you just want to infuse more visuals into your life and into your work, here are some ways you can do that. The Sonoflex Lite is an AAC app, and it's by Toby, and it's free. And what's nice about it is it is a full app, so it's not missing any of the critical features in the free version. The restrictions that it has are minor, and you'd have to know more about the software to know what was missing. So it's a great way to get access to a lot of vocabulary and visuals and not have to do anything to purchase that. So I would advise that you check that out if you're saying, boy, I need a lot of vocabulary to work with the folks that I'm working with, and it's going to require a lot of different supports. Maybe you start with this and find some of the words that you need here, and then you could even do what I've done here, which is to take a screenshot or a picture of what's on the screen and print it out and use that as a paper-based version of that system. But that's a nice app that's been out for quite a while with a good track record. This is another app that is free. It's another communication app, and it's called Grid Player. I don't use this a whole lot, but I also have the luxury of having a lot of AAC apps. So if I didn't, I might use this more. So I did want to include it as an option. As you can see, it has quite a few different categories of information. So this might be another one that you want to check out and see if that works as part of your repertoire of visual supports. The Go Talk Now is a communication app by Attainment, and they have a few different versions ranging from free all the way up to about $150. The free version limits you to 3 displays of this size. So you can create 3 pages of, I believe 25 is the maximum number of symbols per page. So that is limiting in some ways, but in other ways it would be nice to have 75 words that speak, on a communication-based app. This particular app has many other features and many other things it can do, which are sort of above and beyond this webinar, but I did want to post it as an option to look into if you're looking for either an AAC app or something that you could use for visual supports to provide some visual information. This is an example of the Proloquo to Go app communication display, and the reason I included this is not because it's free or inexpensive, because it's not, but I wanted you to see a topic board from an AAC app. So this is the verbs that have to do with the body. That's how they have this categorized in this particular app, and you can see this entire display is geared toward action and movement. So this is a topic board, and it's here it's in a dynamic or electronic version, but you could also use this if you owned the app, or if the student that you're working with owns the app. You could print the page off and use it in paper-based form. You could even create it, in Velcro form if you wanted to. I may have another, yes, I do. So here's another, it's called Making Verbs, and it's verbs having to do with making things. This is a different board in that same system that I thought again had to do with action and physical activity, and so showed you as an example of the types of words that they've selected that might be useful. Just so you can see high-tech topic board, what that might look like. This is a different app, and this is a topic board. Again, not free or inexpensive, but it is an example of a communication board related to activities of daily living. So again, if you're working with an individual that has a communication system that they're using, you might check into and say, do you have any sort of topic-based pages that you might look at for a specific supplemental vocabulary. So this would supplement your core vocabulary or your most commonly used words. As you notice here, there's not a lot of, there's some actions happening here, but there's not a lot of describing words, etc. There's sort of mostly nouns on this page. But again, wanted to give you some examples of different options. So custom boards, let's see if I have that coming up. There it is. Custom Boards is an app, not inexpensive at $49.99, but periodically goes on sale for like $19. And you might think about it then. It's basically, if you're familiar with BoardMaker, it's similar to that same concept, but it's on the iPad. So you can, down here, you can see that it allows you to create communication boards and signs and worksheets and all kinds of other visuals. And it's basically a set of picture symbols. And you can see this is the version of picture symbols that lots and lots of symbols that you can use to create paper-based systems. So the picture that you see here, I created in custom boards. It does not speak. It's something I would print out and use in a paper-based form. So in the resources section of this webinar, you will see a link to a custom board communication display that I created to go along with the physical activities webinar. So it's multiple pages. This is a page of actions because that green background or trim would tell you that. There are describing words, there are nouns in there, there's multiple page PDF. if you don't have anything else, or if you want to take a look at that, it was created to supplement this webinar, so that if you didn't have any other tools, you could go to that. But also, I wanted to show you this particular app as an alternative to creating something in BoardMaker, or if you're looking to what can I use to create the materials that you're talking about. And at the end of this webinar, I will give you other resources for creating your communication displays. So there's also an app called Sticky Notes, and Sticky Notes consists of these little sticky notes that you can create just by tapping on the background, and then it pops up a sticky note, and you add your text, and that's it. What's nice about it is you can move these around on the iPad with your finger, so you can drag them around. So if I was working with a child, I might start by creating these three options and putting them down the bottom here and saying, what would you like to do first? And then having the child tell me, or we drag it up so that they help to create the sequence. And I might print this out. It's just a nice kind of really flexible app for representing text in a visual format to supplement the verbal. So I just thought I would throw that in there as a text-based option. First Then Schedule or Task app by Good Karma is it's a great, very flexible app. As you can see, it goes from a very simple 2-item display, it may even allow you to show 1 item, I'm not sure, to multiple items, and it even allows you to have a video embedded. So this is really wonderful. If you're going to invest in a schedule app, this is one that I really like, and mainly again because it's so flexible, so that you can really individualize it to the person that you're working with and what they need and how they need it. You can see here you take and put finished items in an envelope, and here you move them over and it gets checked off. And again, with the video embedded, there's also choice boards. You can just do lots and lots of things, so it's really a good investment. We did cover the custom boards already. I promised you that I would have a summary of the different formats and materials, etc. So here are a bunch of different ways that we've talked about. Some like on a scooter or a mounting arm or an easel we didn't really talk about, but those are there for your reference to think about how might you mount or hold on to those tools. And then here are a bunch of the material options. So what would be that format that you would use to create that? The practicalaac.org blog site has a post about free resources for making communication boards and visual supports, and that link is here. I will tell you what I do for creating boards. If I don't use the custom board, I very rarely use BoardMaker. What I do is I go to my browser, Chrome or Firefox or whatever you use, and I put the name of the image that I want. So I want to find an image for run, and then I add the words clip art. And the reason I do that is I don't want to get a lot of photos of people running that are going to be too complex. I really want to see a nice clean image. So if I put in the Google search run clip art, this is what I would get, and I could scroll down and see a whole lot more. On a Mac, I'm not sure about a PC, if I right click on the image that I want, I can choose copy image, or I can save it if I want, and paste that right into my document, into a Word table. Put it into one of the cells, and there it is. So that is how I do it, whether I'm on my iPad or on my computer. That is how I do my searches and how I create my boards, because then I can pick the best image for what I want, and if I'm not getting what I want, then I change this to another word. If I'm finding the images are just not matching what I'd like to see, then I can just change my word. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out was the practicalaac.org blog. I did a search for visual supports on their website, and I got 229 results, and all of them were great. So if you want more information about visual supports, that's a great place to go and get that information. And again, if you want information, other resources, there'll be a link to the first webinar in the resources section. There'll be a link to the custom boards display. There'll also be a link for anyone who wants a certificate of attendance for this webinar. If you'll give us a little feedback, then we'll send you a certificate of attendance. So those will all be in the link with this video. And thank you again